There's a word that kept rising up for me. And it's perhaps a strange topic for after class, and maybe it's perfect, but the word is affliction. And the reason I'm speaking about it is that if I look back at my life, and I suspect many of you looking back at your own lives will have a sense of having experienced this affliction. Affliction is some kind of very annoying, painful awareness. It can be emotional, it can be physical, psychological. It can come and go. It can reside for long periods of time. It can truly take up residence. And everybody has different configurations, and some of you may even be blessed not to have very many of them at all. Eckhart Tolle talks a lot about what he calls pain body. Pain body is it's a sense of self defined pretty much by affliction, by some kind of ongoing anger, tension, depression, sadness, you name it. And we build an identity often around these things. And Eckhart has an interesting approach to it. He basically says it's a body that needs to be and wants to be nourished by pain, by suffering. So it keeps coming back, and then when it's satisfied and it's full, it just kind of subsides for a bit. And then every so often it needs more pain, so it finds another thing. It'll bring it up in any number of ways. It can be physical, it can be, he talks about seeking it from other people, finding a way to jump into an argument, to get really angry at somebody, to create this kind of extraordinary confrontation that just sends his body raging through the atmosphere. And then when it has enough, it gets quiet. Ah, okay, I'm full. The way to deal with these afflictions is not to run away from them, not to, wish them away, medicate them away, try endless things you can do to make them go away. I mean, it's okay, you can do that. But more importantly, it's to allow them to be. And one of the reasons to allow them to be is because they are, because they exist, because they rise up or seem to come at us from the outside, but they are there. And you can fight these things if you want. You can be angry about them, which just feeds into the process. You can be in a state of continual misery. Or you can go, okay. Okay doesn't mean you like it. Okay doesn't mean that you wish it upon yourself or anybody else. It just means this is what is. And you come to a point in your spiritual work where what is all you're working with. It's all you have to work with. It's not what was, and what will be, what is. And what is right now. That's it. That's what you've got. Real spiritual work is basically saying okay to what is. And the more you say okay to what is, the more what is will manifest, or you will become aware of it. Stuff will come up. The word processing comes to mind. I don't know that I love that word, but stuff comes up to be released, if you will, to be acknowledged, to be made present, and to be made aware. And then you simply say yes to it. Does that mean it goes away? No. May it go away? Possibly. May it stay there? Possibly. But what's so important about it is that you stop having a negative, angry, hostile relationship to what is. Now, it's easy when you have a really beautiful day and you're sitting around with friends and maybe you have a drink or you having a nice meal and everything is wonderful, to go, I can accept what is. It is not so easy to accept what is when you're afflicted. And that's why it's such a powerful process. It's such a powerful experience. It's why it's at the core of spiritual work. Because when you stop fighting what is and you go yes to this manifestation, you begin to blur the lines between you and it. There's just, you may call it the yin and yang of existence, the pleasure, pain, the joy and the suffering, the totality. Totality is what is. And I have yet to see a totality that is endless good times. I just haven't seen it. Not in my life. Not in anybody that I talk to. There are wonderful moments, and there are wonderful moments of what you call bliss or joy, deep presence, where you're truly grateful to be alive, and you are thankful you were born. And then there are moments that are the exact opposite. And they're all part of totality. The idea of saying yes to half of that, to the good times, is not spiritual work. It's spiritual fantasy. Thinking somehow if I just do it right, if I meditate deeper, if I open my heart more, if I do something, whatever your mechanism is, you will find the doorway to perpetual comfort and bliss. My experience is, if you do spiritual work, you will open the doorway to accepting everything. And it's the accepting that's the key. And it's, in the beginning, it's an action that you take. I will accept this. And the problem with I will accept this is that you are essentially reaffirming the division between you and it. As long as you say I and it, there is conflict. Even when you're aligned, there's still a separation. What finally emerges for us in our spiritual awakening is that there's no effort. You simply go. Actually, you don't do very much of anything. There's just an awareness that this is. There's nothing fighting it. There's nothing doing battle with it. It doesn't mean it won't send you to a doctor or an acupuncturist or, a psychiatrist or a lover or whatever it may send you to find comfort. It may even lead you to this really wonderful place where you learn to comfort yourself. Something I find really compelling. Where when you're really afflicted, what can you say to yourself? What can you tell yourself? What would you tell yourself? And try that. Can you embrace yourself? Can you go, it's okay, sweetheart? Can you do that? You will find strategies until you don't need strategies. Until you sense that you are in the arms of yourself, that you are cradled by yourself, that there is no you even being cradled. There is only the self resting in itself, being itself. It is what is. It is totality. And that is what you are. That's the great revelation. You are totality. You are all there is. You are all there is. That's a very strange note for people to hear. Why would all there is include suffering? Well, of course, why would it not? Why would all there is have so much feeling, dimension, emotion, conflict, curiosity, joy? Why does all there is have that? Of course, that's what all there is. It's all that stuff. And we are these amazing sensing organisms that experience all there is. And the more we surrender, if you will, the more you will experience. The more you will know. The more you will touch life. And the more you accept, get ready, because you get more of it than you ever imagined. Mostly what we do in life is hold it off. We keep it at bay because we can't handle it, we think. Well, spiritual life is stopping that. It's just saying, thy will be done. Thy will be done. And it comes at you. It comes at you full force. It comes at you as a flood of possibility, a flood of opportunity. It's extraordinary what comes when you stop these subtle ways of saying no to life and saying no to what is. Now, what comes may not be your version of what it should be. I will almost guarantee that. It will not come to you the way you think it should be. But the way it comes will be right. It will be right. And if you open to that, if you go yes to that, you will experience what's called the fullness thereof. The earth's is the Lord's and the fullness thereof. That's what you will know. You've signed up for this. You may not know you signed up for this, but the reason you're sitting here or coming to this class is to know the fullness thereof, to know the totality. Something in you, in some secret, unknown place, is asking for this. I was going to say begging, but that's not always true. Something is asking for this. You wouldn't be here if you weren't asking for it. What are you asking for? You're asking for everything. You're asking for everything. And as soon as you ask for that, you're going to have to deal with the part of you that's saying, no, I don't want it. And that's a bizarre conflict. Wanting it and not wanting it at the same time. It's sort of what makes life work. I talked about this long ago when I read it. I still don't fully understand it, but they say right after the Big Bang, the first force that came up was a repellent force. So it was both exploding outward and fighting its own explosion. And that tension is what life is. No, yes, no. All operating at the same time. Once you embrace yes, no, what happens to them? You're not engaging one or the other, you're just being that dynamic. You're being what you are, what is. Maybe it's okay to be yes, no. I mean, if that's what you are, it must be okay. And once you accept it, what happens? Well, the only way you're going to find out what happens when you accept yes, no, when you accept the battle, when you accept the joys and the afflictions, the only way you'll know is do it. Do it. Try it. You know, I was sitting here today teaching. God knows today is full of affliction, which is why the word came up. And I always hate to mention my physical problems because everyone has solutions to them. Suddenly everyone wants me to go to their doctor and go to their acupuncturist and their holistic healer and all of that. I don't want you to talk to me about any of that. But while I was teaching, I have this huge headache, which is coming from an unexpected high blood pressure, which I never had before. I fell over a stroller when I was pushing Talia in March, and I've had this bad neck and a blocked artery, all this stuff. All I can tell you is a lot of stuff, afflictions, stuff. And while I was sitting here, this enormous pain in my ear. Then I had this whole thing of needing to cough. And then I have all of your tensions, which all start to come, and I have to find the way to, if you will, moderate. So I got Bruce's stuff, the bodily stuff. I have the weight of your stuff. I have, well, I can go on, but it doesn't matter. And what I did is I sat there and I went, what can you do? I've told this story 1,000 times. My mother-in-law, at the very last hours of her life, when I went into the hospital room to see her with all these tubes and everything inside her, she had a life of endless struggle. And I have to say, the last moment when I looked at her, she went. And that's kind of where I was teaching from. There's nothing you can do. And the minute you go, there's nothing I can do. It shifts. So I accepted this penetrating pain in my ear without saying, oh my God, I got to go to the doctor, or oh my God, it's going to last forever, or what is this? Is this the end of my life? It just was a pain in my ear. And I could have projected it, which is what many people do, into some big future event, or I could have tried to figure out what did I do wrong 20 years ago that would have created a pain in my ear. All I can tell you is when you just say yes to it, it does its little dance, and believe me, it's just a dance, and then it goes away. It just goes away. Or it goes away and comes back, goes away and comes back, but whatever it does, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Because if you are in the moment, it just does what it needs to do and evaporates. One last thing about this. At the end of your life, all of these afflictions will come to bear. Not necessarily the ones you're used to, but the experience of profound affliction will arise. Because that's how you leave this world. I can't tell you who designed that plan or why it works, but I will tell you all of these minor afflictions are a kind of training ground. They teach you how to say yes to what is inevitable. And either you will find a graciousness and an ability to do this, or you will be ungracious and why me, God? Many people live that way. Why me, God? They live in a state of no grace. Grace is accepting what is, so that when that largest moment comes that is almost impossible to bear, even there you find this presence. Even there, perhaps because of that intensity, because of the enormity of that affliction, you are led into absolute truth and reality. Totality, totality. We're all on this journey together. We share this dialogue. It's not really a dialogue because it's just pouring through, but we share this because we're all trying to figure it out. We're all trying to look at, how do I get through the day? How do I get through the week, the month, the year, and this lifetime? Well, this is one of the things that will help you. Say yes to that which afflicts you. Say yes to what is. Find the power in that, because it will give you a life of truth. It will bring you into reality, and it will teach you who you are. Any questions?
This isn't a question. I really just want to dialogue a little bit about this. It's so ironic because I thought this was one of the most amazing classes I've ever sat through. And if anyone would have said to me, Bruce is having all of these experiences, I would not in a million years would I have guessed that. And it makes me think about so much great work that has remained on the planet, has come through tremendous affliction. You know, our greatest artists are Mahler and Beethoven, in misery, Keats, just in utter, despair. And so I think, for me, always, the great beauty of this teaching has been, if you don't get that what your life material is exactly what you have to work with, you're not really doing the work. And it has saved me, I think, from falling down the rabbit hole. The teaching that you're expressing today, and it's so beautifully clear, I can't wait to read it on a page or hear it again, but it is really saying absolutely yes to it and not resisting it, which is, yes, I think, what this work helps us to do.
I agree with you.
It certainly has helped me.
I think artists use it as for transformative energy. They turn it into something, into art, into beauty. That's what you do that's what you can do with this energy. It's not what everybody does with it. Everybody does their own thing. But you bring up Beethoven and Mahler, or just Beethoven for a moment, being deaf, not being able to hear his own creation, having to create out of silence and make such unbelievable beauty. This is a guy who had to do the work. He did it. And that is spiritual work. Again, you don't have to do that. You can choose the other path, and you can sit around and yell at people and create violence and riot in the streets if you want. But the other way to use that energy is just what I've been talking about today. We're all given that opportunity. It's kind of how you choose to use it that determines whether it's gracious or not gracious, whether it's artfully employed or whether it harms everybody around you. It's kind of your choice. I spoke last week a lot about choice. One thing that came up, and I really wanted to get to it, was people would say to me, but I made intuitive gut-level choices and they didn't work out. That I didn't feel led. It was the wrong choice. And I realized I didn't talk about that. Let me say, you can misinterpret gut-level choice. Gut-level choice can be emotional. It can be, it can come out of anger. It can come out of so many different things. What I'm talking about in terms of profound internal choice is the place of knowing, not feeling, not thinking, not analytical, just knowing. And that again goes back to this thing of presence. There is a place you can go to in yourself that is not emotionally influenced. It's not biased on any level. It's not part of the intellectual spectrum. It's a kind of, yes. That's all it is. If you're making decisions emotionally, intuitively, intellectually, I'm only going to tell you what I'm describing is different. It's knowing. And it's what you get out of sitting still and hearing yourself tell you what to do. The self doesn't yell at you. The self speaks with a very soft voice. It doesn't argue. It doesn't require you to hear it. It just speaks and it says, this way. And something in you goes, I don't want to go that way. And it doesn't care. Then don't go. But it gave you the direction. And it's always there, and it will always give you the direction. And if you have the courage to listen to it and not follow your feelings, your emotions, your instincts, your intellectual sensibility, but follow this very simple, silent thing, it knows what to do. Anyway, that's an addendum to last week's talk. I wanted to get it out there. Anybody else? Thank you.